When it comes to engineering a diet for longevity and performance, we are surrounded by expensive powders and highly processed supplements. Yet sitting right there in the grocery aisle is a historically cheap, incredibly efficient source of fuel. Tofu packs a serious nutritional punch. A standard block delivers 17 grams of protein per serving, containing all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce on its own, along with solid doses of calcium and iron. But if you walk into almost any gym, you will notice that most men actively avoid it. There is an entrenched fitness culture that tells guys to lift heavy and eat meat, leaving plant proteins entirely out of the rotation. This avoidance is driven by a highly persistent piece of internet lore. Search for tofu on fitness forums and you will immediately hit a wall of warnings claiming that eating it will plummet your testosterone and feminize your body. The panic originates from a specific compound naturally found in soybeans called isoflavones. Biologically, these are classified as phytoestrogens. The logic seems straightforward at first glance. The word estrogen is right there in the name. So the assumption is that digesting these plant compounds floods the male body with the exact same hormone that drives female characteristics. We need to look at the actual clinical data to see what happens at the cellular level. We are going to find out if eating tofu is a legitimate hazard to your hormones or a significant overlooked advantage for your health. To understand the reality, we have to track what these compounds do once they enter the human bloodstream. When you digest tofu, the isoflavones break down and begin interacting with your cells. These isoflavones are non-steroidal compounds that are structurally similar to human hormones, allowing them to attach to and activate estrogen receptors in your body. But plant estrogen isn't mammalian estrogen. These isoflavones have a vastly weaker effect and are highly tissue selective, preferring specific beta receptors. Consequently, this selective binding doesn't suppress your endocrine system. Your body continues manufacturing normal, healthy amounts of hormones. Modern clinical trials confirm this repeatedly. Whether a man eats a moderate amount of soy or consumes it heavily, the data shows zero negative impact on his testosterone levels or physical development. The panic over feminization relies entirely on a superficial misunderstanding of how these receptors actually function. The metabolic outcomes simply do not support the fear. Since tofu doesn't ruin your hormones, the next step is looking at the biological return on investment of substituting it for meat. This chart shows the cardiovascular impact of dietary protein sources. When men swap heavy animal proteins for soy, their LDL, the bad cholesterol, goes down, and their overall risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease drops by up to 21%. There is a tangible trade-off here in the kitchen. You cannot just throw a raw block of tofu on a grill like a steak. It requires pressing the water out and marinating it properly so it absorbs flavor. But putting in that extra prep time pays off decades later. As consistent soy intake goes up, the statistical risk of developing prostate cancer plummets because those same isoflavones activate protective cellular mechanisms. A ribeye provides more immediate, calorie-dense bulking metrics, but tofu delivers a superior return on investment for the long-term health of your heart and prostate. There is one clinically relevant drawback to eating traditional, unfermented white tofu, and it has nothing to do with your testosterone. It involves anti-nutrients. Raw, unfermented soybeans contain compounds called phytates. When phytates hit your digestive tract, they bind to certain minerals. For the duration of that specific meal, they temporarily reduce your body's ability to absorb zinc and iron from your food. Overcoming this is incredibly simple. You can bypass phytates entirely by choosing fermented soy products like tempeh or miso. Or, if you prefer standard tofu, just maintain a varied diet so you get those minerals from your other meals throughout the day. Anti-nutrients are a baseline reality of plant-based eating that you can manage with basic meal planning. They aren't a systemic threat to your health. So, how should you integrate this data into your actual life? That depends entirely on your biological baseline. This chart shows the basic decision matrix. The first immediate stop is anyone with a diagnosed soy allergy. While this is a relatively common allergy in young children, the vast majority outgrow it by adulthood, meaning this is a rare absolute barrier for men. The next exception is any man dealing with a severe, unmanaged thyroid condition. Soy contains compounds that can interfere with iodine absorption. If your thyroid function is already compromised and unmedicated, you need a doctor's guidance before making tofu a staple of your diet. If you clear those two hurdles and you are optimizing for longevity, trying to eat cheap as an athlete, or proactively protecting your heart, you are in the optimal group. For you, this protein source actively defends your cardiovascular system and statistically lowers your lifetime risk of prostate cancer. Unless you have one of those two specific medical conditions, tofu operates as an exceptionally safe, biologically optimal fuel. The cultural anxiety telling men to fear tofu is a myth. It is completely unsupported by modern clinical evidence. Avoiding a cheap, highly bioavailable, and heart-protective plant protein because of a rumor on a message board is a clear failure of optimization. When you sit down to engineer your diet for long-term performance, look at the actual clinical data, map it to your own physiology, and leave the internet myths behind.